Very easy process to do. You still need to make sure that the concrete is right. So the concrete needs to be clean, it needs to be sound, all oils, everything's got to be off of it. So more than likely you're not going to be using this outside because this is an epoxy. It's going to be used inside, not out on a sidewalk or anything like that, because epoxy will yellow over time with the UV rays. So the concrete's got to be clean, it's got to be dry. You got to make sure that there's nothing on it. So grinding it, whatever the case may be. You don't necessarily need to use the DK700 on this one, which is the moisture mitigation. So you really don't need to do that. Although, when you're doing epoxy, the DK700 may be something that you always want to consider as a precautionary primer, because it's going to protect the concrete from anything coming up into your epoxy. It's a Perm 1 vapor barrier. It's one of the best vapor barriers you can get out there.
I like that.
Okay? So, and honestly, I think you can put it out for around somewhere between 42 cents a square foot. So it's not that expensive to be able to do it, and you don't have to worry about problems that come up later. Because usually with epoxies, what you're going to do, no matter what it is you're going to always check your slab to see how much moisture is in that slab, how much is coming out. It's called relative humidity in the slab. It's the RH factor. If you got a slab that's releasing moisture and it's over about a 4 or a 5, which is 5,000 units, PSI units in a 100 square feet, then you're not going to want to put epoxy in that slab because the slab is off-gassing. Where now, once you put that moisture mitigation system down, now you can get away with a lot more pressure coming up out of that slab. So that might be something you just want to consider doing because it's insurance, is what it is. When you're doing epoxy jobs, that might be something to consider, especially in basements, especially in areas where you maybe old slabs where you're not sure whether they had moisture vapor barrier down to start with. Like what you were saying, you had an old slab coming up. That would be one that you, yes, put it down. Now here's the thing with moisture mitigation systems. If you have a slab that's got a lot of moisture that's coming up out of the slab, it's got a lot of moisture coming up out of it. So all that hydraulic pressure is pushing moisture through that slab. Unless you address where that moisture is coming from, that moisture is still going to push. Now it's going to hit a vapor barrier, which is your DK700, and it's going to go somewhere. It has to. It can't just keep pushing up. It's going to go somewhere. So it may go to the side of the wall and then come up into the room. It may be pushed outside of the slab. So you don't know what that's going to do. You guys got sump pumps in basements up here? Okay, that's a good thing because usually the moisture is going to go to that area. But if you've got a basement that sump pump is always working, then you're probably not going to want to put epoxy in that basement. If you got a sump pump that's turning on once every 30 days, that's not a big deal. But if you got a sump that's turning on every single day, that means there's problems in that concrete. And you're going to give yourself problems by putting epoxy in a basement like that. There's tests out there. There's calcium chloride tests that you can tell if the basement has got a lot of water in it. There's a lot of RH meters out there that you can get to be able to test that. If you're going to do a lot of epoxy work, if that's your goal. We've had jobs, guys, where people call us and they got literally bubbles like this big or even bigger. And you can take your fingers and pop it like a pimple and moisture comes up out of it. That epoxy stops that water. That water's, remember that concrete's a living, breathing animal. It's constantly taking in moisture, it's releasing moisture, it's doing that. I don't care if it's a 60-year-old slab, it's still doing that, it's still taking all that in. So epoxy, you can get bit in the butt like that real quick if you're not doing those calcium chloride tests. So the minimum you should do is the calcium chloride test. And you shouldn't do it in one spot. You need to do it in several spots in the basement. There's meters where you can drill a hole into the slab. You can put this meter in the slab, and you come back and you read that slab several times, and it tells you how much moisture is within the slab, not at the surface, but in the middle of the slab. All of that is, when you're doing epoxies, it's not a bad thing to do. That's a good thing to do. Okay? But that moisture mitigation system, that DK700, is a good insurance agent. That right there, that'll solve you a lot of problems. The other thing that we're doing here on this particular one, we're using a water-based epoxy here. Now the water-based epoxy itself will handle almost 13, up to a number 13 in the PSI range. So the water-based epoxy does a lot. And since it is water-based, when it first goes out, if there's any moisture in that slab, that water actually helps that epoxy to bond. Okay? Very, very strong epoxy. It's less money, so it's more economical for you to be able to put this epoxy out. Now the other nice thing is this epoxy, this water-based, and also the 100% that we have over here, we have a special machine that only Surecrete has. It's our tint machine that we can tint this to almost 300 colors. And we can tint 100% solids to almost 300 different colors. So if you've got somebody who just wants a basement floor that was just a colored epoxy, it's a good way to do it. Okay, with all epoxies, once you mix the epoxy, you want to get the epoxy out of the ground. Okay, you don't want to leave it in there and put it in a paint roller and paint it out. You'll lose the epoxy. Epoxy, what happens is the two components are coming together and they make the one component. So when you do a water-based epoxy, even at this point it's water-based, once it turns into epoxy, there's no difference in structure in that epoxy between this and the solvent-based. They're both epoxies. But when those two things are coming together and they're forming the epoxy, they cause heat. And it's like you get a whole bunch of it together and it causes heat and it makes it kick that much faster. So that's why you want to get it out in the ground so you're not having them all bunched together. Now the water base isn't going to hit as fast or as strong as the solvent base does. That's going to go off even faster if you left it in the bucket. In fact, the solvent based epoxy, if you mixed it in a gallon can and you walked away from it, 15 to 20 minutes later, you're going to come back and that can's going to be smoking, literally. It gets that hot. So it's exothermic, it just releases its energy. That's why you want to get it out and spread, and then you got more time to work with it. So this is where you put the metallics in. Okay? Now, with all of the sealers, guys, make sure it's brought up to temperature. Personally, I would never do an epoxy floor below 65 degrees. So, if it's sitting there trying to cure and it's cross-linking and the concrete is trying to breathe underneath of it, it's going to cause issues. So, if it gets too cold like that, it causes more issues. Go back to the DK700, the moisture mitigation primer. I would use that every time I did one of these floors, without question.
I agree with you.
You're still going to grind the floor. You're still going to do your moisture test on the floor. You're going to check all of it. But
The DK700 is a sealer?
What's that?
DK700 is a sealer or epoxy?
It's actually a polyurethane.
Oh,
But what it is, it's a moisture mitigation primer. So it stops.
It's a primer.
It's a primer.
Oh, it's a primer.
Yep.
So you, because we did one application, one-time application, not 2 cups, never scrape anything from the sides of the container. So whatever comes out, whatever's come out.
shallow.
Design too.
Whatever you want, yeah.
Picture, you know, like put the sun over there.
So I'm gonna leave these two pieces like this. So we'll see later how does it look like when it dries.
It doesn't go very far. Was that 1 gallon?
No, that was a quart and a half.
Oh, okay.
This is metallic. Yep. This is oil.
It rolls out pretty damn stiff. I wouldn't want to use this on a job site.
No. You can feel it sticky.
Yeah, it's really sticky.
It's real sticky. About the same. And just roll this one flat. Yeah. That play with it. But on this end,
okay.
just kind of let this kind of go.
Give us a vein line there.
This is the E. Yeah, so both E's. Yeah, just kind of roll it out so it evens it out.
It's so hard to tell people that.
Don't go any more this way, Robert. Just go straight across. Oh, you like just wait and all that. Oh, there he goes again. That's good.
Roll.
That's good. So we're going to watch as we move here how this stuff moves. Okay, and you're going to see the difference in the way of each one, of each part B, how they move differently. So this is the new E. I will take that from you.
Is that blonde again?
This is blonde again. Yep. So go ahead and swirl that one.
Your magic. Just roll that one out back and forth. Just roll that back and forth. Don't forward. Back and forth.
Yeah, just kind of level that out.
You want it even or just leveled out?
Just level out. It'll seek its own level.
Now work magic on this right here.
I don't know what I'm doing. What are you doing right now?
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on just a minute.
And I didn't notice it. I realized it doesn't matter shoe prints or not.
Oh,
On something like this,
you're doing this back.
We've got some guys that are actually putting it out.
they're squeegeeing it out, they're back rolling, and then they come in with a 4-inch foam roller or a 6-inch foam roller. What it's doing is it's breaking all the bubbles. They're just coming in it just really lightly and breaking bubbles with this roller. Now I don't know about you, Robert, but to me, I don't think I'd want to go over my whole job with a 4-inch roller or a 6-inch roller.
It's gonna take forever. Even with a 6-inch. No way.
Just to show you something a little bit different.
I would have given the guys that same question as well.
Still, I mean, it works as good as,
Some guys that like to take up the talent.
It flashed pretty quick. Here it's
yeah.
it's
Denatured alcohol to clean it. Now remember I was telling you, if you look at like this right here,
Yeah.
okay, that's from dirt. That's all from dirt. So the epoxy runs away from it and gives it, it looks at that dirt as something that's foreign. And the epoxy runs away. The nice thing is this coat right now, it's gonna
It's
fix
covered.
it.
It's covered, but because it doesn't have a hole.
Right,
It's completely full.
Those are like fish eyes and lacquer.
Yeah.
It's so hard to get rid of.
yep.
You continue doing clamp?
Yeah. I have a friend who's from Chile. Wanted to be the first guy to swim around Easter Island, so I went to kayak to him. Because he even several ships. Yeah, but after 24 hours he still wasn't done.
Okay, now this one over here, the flake, relatively quick drying. I mean, it's about 2 to 4 hour dry time. If you wanted to mat it down, if you wanted to take the sheen off of it, there's a matting agent to be able to do that. This matting agent works in the acrylics. It works in the solvent-based urethane. The water-based you're probably not going to mat down because it's already got a matte finish to it. But this product works in those to bring the shine down if that's what your goal is. This is one of those that you want to try to keep it warm. Don't let it get cold in the truck. Reason being is this part B, every 5 degrees gets about 10% thicker. So if you're doing kits and this is cold, and you go to dump this all in here, you're going to have to hold it and hold it and hold it and hold it for this to get empty into the can. If you don't get all of this into the can, then you change the dynamics of the mix. So you need to make sure that this is, somewhere around 65 degrees or up. So just acclimate it to the weather, to what you're doing. So this is a 4-to-1 mixture. So let's see, we'll go 32 ounces will be plenty for what we need. And this is going to be a very, very durable finish. In some cases like this here, you may want to just put one coat on. But this is a satin already.
it's set. Yeah, it's set. You can close it, we can take the gloss if you want.
No, set works.
Satin? It's gonna work fine on this one?
It won't be as glossy. You wanna use the gloss?
Yeah, let's
Let's
use
use
the gloss.
gloss.
Close it back, I'm gonna take the gloss.
Part B is the same, so we can just,
So these are large area finishes as opposed to.
yes, they are. These are more floor finishes versus what we were talking about earlier for countertop finishes. They can be used each way, but these are more for floor. Yeah. This one you need about a minute work time, real, next time. By the way, all these solvent materials, make sure your pilot lights are off
Yeah,
in your houses.
some ventilation.
Yeah, some ventilation. I mean, here we got the door open and everything's not an issue, and there's not much fumes, but if you're in a home,
Yeah.
Better open the window, the
open
doors.
doors, open windows, we're probably gonna do that anyways, but even the PC-12 in the kitchen, if you're doing that in the kitchen, make sure that the pilot lights are off in the stove, the oven. You know,
No lights on,
yeah,
No
no
smoking.
smoking.
no smoking area, yeah.
'Cause it is flammable. Now, the fumes have to build up pretty good to be
Yeah.
flammable. Every once in a while, we hear cases where guys blow things up. We had 2 houses in Florida get blown up that way.
But that's nice.
Yeah.
I like that, the way it looks.
Yeah, we're trying to do something different.
No, it's that's the way to.
You know, if 1,000 guys do concrete, 10 guys do this.
Now, this you got plenty of time to work with. This you could actually put in a roller pan if you wanted to, and work it that way. And like all sealers that we're talking about, thin is the wing. You're much better off with a thin coat than you are with a thick coat.
That doesn't stop when it's starting. Right, but at least they know that I told them from steel. Yeah.
When I roll, guys, I'll roll, when I'm doing finish coats, like on epoxy, If I'm doing 2 coats, I'll roll the first coat east to west, and I'll come back in the next day and roll the second coat north to south. That way I'm not rolling lines in. This is one you don't want to spend a lot of time on.
Right.
Just roll it out and go. You know, I always look at it backwards to make sure that I got it covered, but pretty much just roll it and go.